All right, let's dive in. Today, we're doing things a little differently. We're going Bollywood.
Bollywood,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're looking at masculinity, how it's shown, in the film Bride and Prejudice.
Ah, Bride and Prejudice.
Yeah, so we're taking like classic Jane Austen and giving it a whole new flavor.
Sounds fun.
It is.
Hmm.
And we've got this academic analysis that really digs into it. How this remake tackles the whole, like what's expected, culturally.
Legacy. Yeah.
Those ideas of what makes a man, well, a man, they can clash sometimes, right?
It's a really interesting perspective. I mean, Austen's world and then modern India. Talk about a collision of, well, pretty much everything.
Totally. And, for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's basically Pride and Prejudice, but musical and set in India.
Okay.
Four sisters, the whole marriage pressure thing, but it's not just arranged marriages.
Right.
Pride and Prejudice mixes that with modern ideas about love and choice,
That's where it gets really interesting. Tradition versus, like, modern life.
Big time. So Darcy, let's talk about him. At first you think classic masculine guy.
Okay, I'm listening.
American, rich, confident. You'd think he'd be like the ultimate catch. But Lalita, not impressed.
Ah, yes. Remember that line about him needing to learn to dance like the natives?
Exactly. It's like, at first his being different, being foreign, it's a plus. But then it flips.
It does. It's that, how do they put it in the analysis? Post-colonial masculinity.
Post-colonial masculinity.
Yeah, it's this whole idea that in, countries that were colonized, Western traits, they're seen as better, higher.
Oh, I see. So Darcy's got the money, the Western background, but...
But he doesn't get it. Indian culture, I mean, so Lita's not into it.
So context is everything, basically.
Yeah, it really is.
But then, get this, Darcy actually becomes more attractive as the film goes on.
He changes. It's not just about money or confidence anymore. He actually starts, like, appreciating Indian culture.
So he learns, and that's what Lolita likes.
Exactly. It's like the film is saying true strength. It's not about pushing your own thing. Right.
It's about understanding, valuing different perspectives.
Okay, so we've got Darcy. Starts off kind of a dud, but then gets it. But then there's Wickham, the British soldier. Total charmer, at least at first.
Oh, Wickham.
The analysis, they describe the sisters' reaction to him like seeing a candy bar.
They were smitten.
Totally. He seems to get India, unlike Darcy at first. They call it hybrid masculinity.
Hybrid masculinity, yeah.
Mm.
It's like he blends, that Western charm with actually liking, even embracing traditional Indian things.
And that's appealing in the film's context.
Very much so.
He compliments India, tells Lalita, better single than unhappy, which, that supports her independence.
Yeah, he's walking this line between two worlds, but it makes you wonder, is it genuine or is he playing it up?
Right. Is it just an act?
This is where colonialism and how it messes with, like, what we think is masculine, it gets complicated. What do you think?
It's a good question. I mean, is he really understanding or just manipulating? Exactly. And of course, as the story goes, those first impressions, they can be so deceiving.
Totally. And Wickham, well, his downfall is dramatic. He's exposed, liar, manipulator, the whole image crumbles.
Literally running away in one scene, remember? Talk about losing power.
And then the sisters slapping him?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's like his masculinity being, like, stripped away.
Not just by Darcy either, by the women he messed over.
Right.
Shows you real masculinity. It's not about surface charm or even cultural awareness.
Yep.
It's about integrity, respect.
And Wickham, 0 points for those. So two very different guys. Darcy, who learns and grows, and Wickham, whose mask falls off. But what does Bride and Prejudice really say about masculinity?
That's the big question.
Is it as simple as good guy, bad guy? Or is there more to it?
I think definitely more to it. The film is saying, look deeper. It's not just the money, the confidence, even where you're from. Those things alone don't make you masculine.
You're saying it's pushing back against simple ideas.
Yes. And especially in India, which is changing so fast. Tradition bumping up against modern thought.
It makes you think how men are affected by all that.
Totally. And it's not just men. The women in Bride and Prejudice, they have their own changing ideas about what they want in a partner.
Good point. We focused a lot on Darcy and Wickham, but Lalita and her sisters, they fit into this whole masculinity thing too, right?
They do. They're not just sitting back watching. They have power. They're shaping how masculinity is seen and valued.
This is getting really interesting. I can't wait to hear more about how the women challenge expectations. But first, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back to unpack that in part 2.
Back to it. So the women in Bride and Prejudice, they're really key to understanding how masculinity is being, well, redefine.
Totally. We've talked a lot about like Darcy, Wickham, all that. But Lalita and her sisters, time to give them the spotlight.
Right. Lalita, for example. She's
Yeah.
smart, independent, and she's not falling for the, typical strongman type. She sees right through Darcy's arrogance, her rejecting him at first. That says a lot.
It does. It's like she wants more than just the surface stuff. Money, confidence, all that.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about respect, understanding, seeing her as an equal.
And she only goes for Darcy after he's actually grown, right? After he gets her culture.
Right. Lolita's not swayed by, these fake shows of masculinity.
It's almost like she's leading the way,
Yeah.
showing what she values.
She is, and it flips the script, right? Women aren't just, passively waiting around.
Yep.
They're shaping what they think is attractive in a partner.
So the film is saying real masculinity, it's not about power or control.
Not at all. It's about equality, respect, that deeper connection.
That's a pretty big shift from like the old school views.
It is, and it's happening everywhere, not just India. How we see gender roles, relationships, it's all changing.
And Bride and Prejudice is like reflecting that back at us.
It is. It makes us question, what we think about being masculine or feminine, all that.
And it does it with humor, with music, with all that Bollywood energy.
Yeah, it's a fun movie.
So we've got the challenge to old ideas about men. We see how the women are driving things. But there's this other layer, the whole cultural mashup thing. Jane Austen, but Bollywood.
Right.
How does that, mixing of cultures, how does it change how we see masculinity in the film?
Such a good point. That clash, Western versus Indian, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not just setting Austen's story in India. It's about those two viewpoints, how they hit each other head on.
And what's considered manly, it changes depending where you are. Right?
Totally. And Bride and Prejudice, it plays with that in really smart ways. Darcy, for instance.
Yeah.
Being Western, it's good and bad. He's got the money, confidence, but he's not sensitive to the culture.
It's like he needs to unlearn some of that Western man stuff
Yeah.
to actually click with Lalita.
Exactly. That unlearning, that's the key to him changing. He's not trying to become Indian. It's more like realizing different ways of seeing things are okay.
He adapts, basically.
He does. And the message there, real masculinity isn't about being stuck in your ways.
Right.
It's about being open to growing, to changing.
This whole idea that masculinity isn't just one thing. It's always being figured out again based on where you are, what's around you.
That's it. And it's fascinating, don't you think?
Totally. Okay, so we've covered a lot. Bride and Prejudice and how it challenges what we think about men, how women shape that. And this whole mix of cultures makes it even more, complicated.
And it makes you think about, what does it mean to be a man today? Especially as cultures blend more and more, expectations are changing all the time.
All while being a super fun film.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Entertaining and thought-provoking, the best combo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I think we need a little something to really, make people think.
A thought-provoking question. I've got just the one.
Okay, lay it on me. What's the question our listeners should be, chewing on after this?
Here it is. Think about the ending of Bride and Prejudice. Does it really, truly challenge how we see men and women? Or does it end up kind of reinforcing those old ideas? What does that tell us about what the film is really saying about, masculinity and relationships today?
Whoa. That's a deep one. It makes you wonder, even when a film's trying to break the mold, those old expectations, they're still there,
Exactly. It's walking that line, tradition on one side, modern life on the other.
And the film leaves it up to us to decide, which side wins out in the end.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes it so good. It doesn't give you easy answers. You're left with these questions, and that's what makes you think, right?
So, it sparks debate, makes you want to talk about it, look at it from all these different angles, and that's what we love here on The Deep Dive, right?
It is. It's not just about giving you the info. It's about making you think for yourself. Question what you think you know. Maybe even see things in a new way.
Love it. And I think Bride and Prejudice does that.
Yeah.
Classic story, Bollywood style, and suddenly you're thinking about what it means to be a man, about different cultures, even about love itself.
It shows you stories have power. They can cross borders, start conversations, and this film, it definitely does that. Gurinder, the director, she did an amazing job. Beautiful to watch, music is fantastic, and it really makes you think.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks to everyone for diving deep with us into the world of Bride and Prejudice. If you haven't seen it, add it to your list. It's a treat for your eyes and ears, and it'll make you think about, pretty much everything.
Maybe even start some fun debates with your friends.
You got it. Until next time, keep on exploring.